Hi, it's Josh coming to you on a kind of blustery day here at the end of March 2026. I'm here to start catching up on a handful of videos that I recorded in 2025 that I have not gotten around to yet. All four of these are adventurous videos, mostly based around concert attendance, although this first video is the least interesting of the bunch, as it is strictly a concert video. The other three I have to catch up on have various weird and interesting circumstances surrounding them. So this one is all about a concert, and for this one we go all the way back to Wednesday, June 11th, 2025 to talk about three bands that I went to Toronto to catch. The reason I went to this show is because it was being headlined by a band called the Rumjacks, who I have spoken about previously on my channel. This band has been a recent favorite band for one of my brothers in recent years, and so we've gone out to Toronto to catch them before. I can't remember when the last time was. Time just flies. But anyways, so yeah, this one we go back all the way to June. It was taking place at a venue that I've never been to before in Toronto called Longboat Hall. And this really prompted me to look into it a little bit, because when I saw the word longboat, I was thinking Vikings, although I guess those are long ships. But turns out Longboat Hall was named after a famous indigenous person named Tom Longboat, who was from the Onondaga Nation of the indigenous peoples of this area. I guess he grew up on a reservation near Brantford, Ontario, which isn't too far from me here. He was a dominant long-distance runner in the early 1900s and was winning marathons and setting records at that time. Then World War I came along and he enlisted with the Canadian Expeditionary Force, where he served as a dispatch runner, running messages between military posts. Although don't think that just because he was a dispatch runner that he wasn't in danger, because he actually got wounded twice and was declared dead twice. And one of the times he was declared dead, his wife ended up remarrying, and later when she found out that he was in fact still alive, she wasn't interested in leaving her new husband, so poor Tom there was just left on his own. After the war he retired from running. I don't know if it was because of his wounds or for other reasons, but eventually he died at the age of 62 from pneumonia. And his legacy is that he, at least one person described him as being one of the greatest, if not the greatest, marathoner of all time. There was one marathon they mentioned that he won by a full 3 minutes, which is absolutely wild. I think he actually won the Boston Marathon as well, so he was quite a dominant runner. But I thought that's pretty interesting history and why this particular venue is named Longboat Hall. So there you go, information you won't get from other YouTube channels that talk about punk rock shows. Information you probably are bored to death hearing, but I find this history interesting. Now I will say about this venue that the sound wasn't great, and it might have just been where we were standing. We found a little wall space off to the far left of stage where we could stand and lean against the wall, because all three of us who attended, myself, my brother, and one of my brother's friends, are, elderly gentlemen, and it's nice to have something to lean against while we watch the punk rock show. The first band up, this is one that I could not remember their name, and so before recording this video, I spent ages trying to search it up on the internet, and I gotta tell you, search engines on the internet these days, absolutely atrocious. I could not for the life of me find this band until finally I went to the Longboat Hall website, and I found that they have a whole history of all the bands that have performed there. And so I went back through the history and found this show, and then remembered that this first band was a band called NERiMA, who are a band from Toronto that are described as being sort of alternative rock or pop punkish, and very young folks who are getting started in their music, and they do have some cool stuff out there. I was checking out some of their stuff on YouTube again before recording this video, and they have a song called Fester on YouTube. It's really quite a beautiful song that might be worth checking out if you're interested. But anyways, despite their youth, they did a great job. They were great musicians, really tight band, put on a great performance. The highlight of the show for me was when they did a cover of a Gob song called, I think it's called I Hear You Calling. It was fun to hear one of Gob's hits being played on stage there. So overall, while NERiMA's music isn't necessarily stuff that I would pop on and listen to, you know, like I said, they've got some nice songs out there and stuff. It's not necessarily my cup of tea, but they put on a great performance and they do have some cool music out there. The next band up was called Crazy and the Brains. This is a punk band from New Jersey with a member who plays a large saxophone. It's possibly a tenor sax, I'm not entirely sure. And apparently they formerly had a xylophone player, which was noteworthy due to the complete lack of punk bands that employ xylophone players in their lineups typically. As with NERiMA, or NERiMA, whatever they're called, I had not heard of Crazy and the Brains before. And when I saw them performing, the first question that popped into my head was, cocaine or meth? What is it that is powering them right now? They had this wild, frenetic energy during their entire set, which was awesome. Their performance was so electric and so energized. I thought it was funny, again, doing a bit of research before recording this video, that their Instagram description just says, emotional punk ballads, maximum enthusiasm, New Jersey. Sounds pretty accurate. Overall, once again, this isn't music that I would just pop on and listen to. Not really my cup of tea necessarily, but absolutely mesmerizing show to watch. Amazing musicians, amazing performance, just a super fun time watching them in concert. Before I carry on to the headlining band here, I will just let you know that this video is brought to you by the joy of not being sold anything. Stop buying junk you don't need. A simple life is a less stressful life. This video is also brought to you by my Patreon supporters. Unfortunately, while I gained a Patreon supporter recently, I also lost a Patreon supporter recently, which is totally fine. People's circumstances change, and I would just put it out there that I hope that if any of my Patreon supporters find themselves in changing financial circumstances, that they won't feel any obligation whatsoever about stopping their Patreon support. As wonderful and helpful it is to me, I don't want anyone to feel any guilt about having to discontinue Patreon support due to their own circumstances changing. I'm all too familiar with that particular situation, obviously. So while I am extremely grateful, I hope people don't feel too obliged to stick around if it's not something you want to keep or can keep doing. Alright, the headlining band, the one we were there to see, was a band called the Rumjacks, who are an Irish-style folk punk band from Sydney, Australia / Boston, USA. fact that they list themselves as being from Sydney and Boston, as strange as it is only half the story, because apparently their members currently live in Boston, Berlin, Belfast, and Milan. And when I saw that list, I was like, couldn't the person in Milan have moved just a little bit northeast to Bergamo? Then they could have all been B cities: Berlin, Belfast, Boston, and Bergamo. But anyways, what a strange mix for a band to be from literally all over the world in 2 or 3 different continents even. I don't know how they make that work. In any case, they do make it work extremely well. Their music, as with many Irish-style folk bands, is extremely fun and so entertaining to watch.
So raise a pipe for those below. We're singing beneath our shoes.
Once again, the sound here was not good where we were standing. Really, I could only hear the bass and the drums well. The other instruments were fairly muffled, but again, I guess I could have walked around a little bit and seen if the sound was better and more centrally located, but you know, I was busy holding up that wall and was feeling too lazy to move, I guess. Yet again, we have clearly very talented musicians who put on a great show, are super tight as a band, and just have a really fun performance. People who are fans of bands like the Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly would probably really enjoy the Rumjacks, and I definitely recommend them. Here's more Rumjacks. Myself, my brother, and my brother's friend all enjoyed ourselves immensely, had a ton of fun at the show. Thought all 3 bands did a really good job, and we certainly enjoyed ourselves. And now that I've caught up from this concert from nearly a year ago, and I only have 3 more to catch up on, please let me know what bands you've been enjoying recently. I'd love to hear what you're listening to. I'd love to hear if you recommend anything that I check out based on the stuff I talk about here. I'm always open to recommendations, and I just really appreciate you watching. Cheers. At the end of March 2026, and I got to sneeze. Oh no, it's not gonna work. I hate that. Oh man. Who are a band from Toronto who describe themselves as being alt rock, or who are a band from Toronto that are described as being alternative rock / punk. But the first question that popped into my head, I was unfamiliar with this band before. As with NERiMA. So yeah, fans of bands like Flogging Molly and who did Rose Tattoo? Goddamn.